It is my pleasure now to introduce Ray Brunt and Pamela Brunt, recipients of the Leadership and Legacy Award. And Ray and Pam, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, congratulations on this amazing award. Thank you both for being here.
No, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Dara.
So leadership and legacy. I mean, we're not going to go too far back, but the bottom line is both of you have been major contributors to the Algonquin arts. And Ray, if I can, I want to start with you because you came on board as a trustee and part of the development committee, actually, of the Algonquin at a rather pivotal point when the theater, instead of having productions come in, actually turned into a house where we produced our own shows, and it was a real turning point for the theater. Can you tell us about that and what brought it about?
Yeah, I think we were really, financially we were struggling a little bit, and I think we were trying to come up with a business model that made sense. It's a nonprofit, but to run it like a business really does make sense. So we looked at what was working in the past and worked with Bill Whitefield quite a bit on this in terms of trying to figure out, from a production standpoint, where we could go with it with the theater. And we picked the right shows. I think we looked at the audience that we had and determined what would sell tickets, and we were off to the races.
And here's a question. You just mentioned it was a business model. How much of the community played a part in your decisions?
Well, I think it's all about community. I think it's the people that were patrons in the past and the people that were patrons that we were looking to bring in, future patrons. I think we had to examine the whole market and really kind of assess who would be coming to the theater long term, and not throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. You want to keep the people that you have coming, but at the same time, you need to continue to add your audience base.
Speaking of audience, how did you actually become a participant in Algonquin Arts?
Well, my son had been involved for many years in the summer programs, and Bill Whitefield had approached me at one point about coming on the board. They were looking for some people with some business experience, which I had, and who were also interested in the arts as well. Once we really found what the theater meant to my son, how it was changing his life, that's when we really got much more involved. And that's sort of was the turning point for us to really get seriously involved, and ultimately me getting on the board and everything else that we've done, since then.
This was all really kicked off by my son, because Alex was a little kid when he first got involved with the summer programs, and then eventually, as he got older, he started interning and doing community service hours there. And we all met so many people that today are our friends just from being involved in the theater.
Yeah,
so
I think that's part of when you get involved with something. It has to be something that you're interested in and passionate about, right. And there has to be an initial reason. But once you become part of the community and you build that community around you, and that community continues to grow, that's what holds you there long term.
And that's what happened with us. We just became long-term participants, contributing to the theater, but also enjoying the theater.
And lucky for us to have you. We know your accomplishments. This is the Leadership and the Legacy Award. And, we can do the bullet points of everything you've done and been a part of. We know what you've done for us. How has the theater changed you?
You're looking at me.
That's a big question.
Well, I can speak to it, I guess, because I think I had never served on a nonprofit board prior to this. I was on the board for 7 years and remained active on some committees after that. So my involvement directly with the theater was probably 8 years or more. So, it's gotten me into a different place in terms of where I spend my time and energy. And, I think it's made a more altruistic
yes.
for both of us, I think, altruistically, what we've contributed to the different organizations, and got us more involved in different communities.
And also just the pleasure we've gotten out of doing it. Not only just the enjoyment of going in and viewing the performances, but also back to this jazz series, which we sponsor. When that jazz series first came to the Algonquin, it was on the stage. It was set up as a cabaret, and there were about 30 people that came to see the first jazz series. Today, they have sold out performances.
Yeah.
And how many seats are in the theater?
Over 500. So I think overall, the people that we've been able to get to come to the Algonquin, whether they're stage performances, musical performances, over the years, it's been really an exceptional group of musicians, and some world-class talent has been here.
And thankfully, the theater has been thriving over these past few years, no doubt with the help of you. Any interesting, fun, wonderful memories that you would like to share about the theater?
Wow. There's so many.
Well, you
go first.
Okay.
I just have to think.
Well, I think I remember one night in particular. It was actually what I like to think of as one of my primary accomplishments on the board was, spearheading the seat campaign and getting the seats redone in the theater, because they were vintage 1930 something seats, and the world has changed, people have changed, and we needed new seats. So that was something that I helped spearhead. I think was important. And I remember the first night coming to the theater and everyone coming in and sitting in those new seats and thinking to myself, wow, it finally happened.
And Pam, you smiled and you said you had so many memories.
So many. What always struck me was when my son would come home and he would get together with many of his friends who also, because he started doing the summer programs, they started doing it as well. Plus he made additional friends just from doing it. They would come back to our house and they would write their own productions. And then they would act them out and they would film themselves. And many a time Ray and I were involved, either narration or behind the scenes.
I was an extra.
Extras, camera work. And that to me was just very telling to me.
Yeah.
And as time went on, I saw that my son became a storyteller, which was very rewarding for us because we feel like a lot of his beginnings were from the Algonquin.
Yeah, I think he, had that theater not existed, I don't know where he would have gotten that inspiration to go on to NYU Film School, and like Pam said, to become a storyteller and a writer, and the different things that he's doing in his life. But the hundreds and hundreds of kids that have gone through the Algonquin, thousands, I imagine by now, that have gone through the education series that Julie runs, and the lives that have been changed because of that, it's immeasurable. I mean,
so Ray, let's talk about this, because if you are to be remembered for a legacy, for something that you feel is the most important thing that you contributed to the Algonquin, what do you think that would be?
Oh, wow. I guess, well, the fact that people do have to sit down every time they go in, that's a nice thing to be remembered for. That some old coil spring isn't sticking you in your butt, every time you sit down. I guess that's probably one thing. But I think stabilizing the theater in a way that, financially, from the time I started on the board to the time I left the board, it really grew, to a much more stable organization, not counting on any one aspect of, whether it's donations or grants or ticket sales, but we balanced it so that it would be sustainable. So I think the sustainability and legacy really tie together, because if something's not sustainable, there's nothing to have a legacy about.
And Ray, for everything you have done for the theater, is there anything you'd like to say to our audience who's watching now at our bash? Because we are doing this virtually, so it's your floor.
I would just like to say quickly that, the theater opened during the Depression. The theater survived World War II and all the different wars and economic downturns and problems that came since then. But we can't maintain it, and it will not continue forever without support. So whether it's coming to a show, whether it's making a donation, no donation is too small, no donation is too big. So I think it because of the value that it has for the community from a financial standpoint, it acts as an anchor for the town in so many ways to help restaurants, flower shops, everything, florists downtown. Everybody benefits from having the theater there.
Well, thank you for your contributions. Thank you for always being there for the Algonquin arts, because you two have really made an impact on it. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And congratulations on your Leadership and Legacy Award. Thank you to Ray and Pamela Brunt.
Thank you,
Thank
Dara.
you,
Thank you,
Dara.
everyone. Have a great
Thanks.
night.